Curriculum development in education in America in our history, is largely a reflection and a reaction to the social, political, and economic climate and culture at the time. Um, in my opinion, there is no question on what the purpose of school and the role of a teacher should be. Um, with our constantly changing and evolving times and the progress and intellectualism and the information age, um, literally a child can change the world overnight. Whether it be Greta Thunberg, who's sort of raising awareness, cultural awareness, um, with our adults and our children throughout the world globally, or whether it be a school shooter who sort of influences our society and our culture and the ways that we view things, or a YouTuber, or whether it's Billie Eilish who becomes popularized overnight. For the good or the bad, a child or our youth can literally become a global agent of change, overnight or within hours. So therefore, it seems quite obvious that, as educators and an educational system would have to move with the times and support and honor and validate the voice of children, as well as take a responsibility to ensure that children have the social and emotional support, the creativity, the critical thinking, and the responsibility of being a digital citizen, of being an important contributor to our society and our democracy, and of being a positive contribution to our world. Um, I think that, just, just like Sir Ted Robinson was saying, that creativity and should be high priority and just as important as math or language or mathematics. And I think that art and the humanities and ultimately thinking and learning are just as important. That a list of subjects that we need to teach, or a sort of knowledge base that children need to learn, is quite silly. I do think that we need to, because we are a very large, vast country with such diversity, that we do need to figure out ways that, and maybe at this stage it's more that we rely on local or states to make the decision in regards to curriculum development. But because of our diversity, we just simply cannot mandate one way for all. I think it's very interesting to see the influence of the curriculum development in my life, growing up. In the 20 years before I was born, so many things happened to shape education, from the civil rights movement to the assassination of Martin Luther King and Kennedy, and the development of things like Bloom's taxonomy and the definition of gifted and talented education, and the cognitive learning theory becoming popularized. And of course, the year I was born in 1977, where the first successful personal computer is developed. I was born into far more voice. I had far more voice, choice, and opportunities than those that lived in my circumstances before me. Although I grew up in a lower income household, I with a lot of trauma and a lot of um, dysfunction. Ultimately, the school system sort of validated and honored. And once I was labeled as gifted and talented, I know that I felt valued and that I felt special and unique. And I know that I had opportunities in the analysis of great literature and in the development of critical thinking um, and others listening to my voice and in development of my writing skills that I might not have had otherwise. And I don't know who I would be without it. And then in my lifetime, going into teaching, and again, knowing the value of my own voice and knowing um, the importance of connecting to a child and listening to a child's voice was so powerful that I wasn't afraid of the system. And so even with No Child Left Behind, and even while I'm learning what I'm doing, and I'm teaching English language learners when I don't know Spanish and I don't know what's best, and they've been stuck in the system for 4 years at the same level. Even with all of that, where our test scores at our school site are low and we're in danger of losing funds, I was sent to a training in which I was with lots of money being spent on a brand new curriculum for my students. And I knew it wasn't the best for my students, even as a new teacher. I just, in my heart, I knew it wasn't. And I knew that wasn't going to be the thing that shifted and transformed these students. And I refused to teach it. And ultimately became a teacher leader in that school district and helped to transform the culture and climate of that school, in addition to supporting curriculum development and transforming the school to a professional learning community, and leading the professional development for a year or two. So it is incredible to read about the course of curriculum development in American history, and how at times when outsiders or professionals that weren't in the fields of education would attempt to shift or change the course of education, it simply wouldn't work, and how it would take many, many years for things to have an impact, versus when teachers are involved in their own classrooms and when they are seen as professionals like so many other fields, and where their research and their understanding of the culture and climate of their schools is valued, that real change can happen. I thought it was interesting to read how, our Constitution obviously doesn't mention curriculum or education, and therefore it would largely fall to the states to determine what works best. Because in my experience in the 2000s, the federal government seems to play a large role, and I am pondering whether or not that should be the case. I mean, obviously, with the vast diversity of the American landscape and the cultures and the different states and expectations and so forth, that I'm just thinking of my microcosm of my school, and how I couldn't think of something that would work all throughout the United States. So I'm wondering if leaving the control to the local districts, to the county, to the schools, with the broader, bigger purpose of digital citizenship and the importance of supporting students in a number of different ways, is developed. But it is interesting to note the big divide in our country politically right now, and then to read about the division of our country in just the last, and the pendulum shift back and forth in the last 100 years. So it seems to me there's a lot of blame, a lot of reaction, a lot of fear, and just lack of understanding of the root of the problem, or a look to the future, and maybe a bit too much focus on the sort of academia. I thought it was pretty hilarious to listen to Michael Young speak, which was not palatable and or accessible or engaging or interesting, or and then to compare that to Sir Ted Robinson, and really it just shows, it's really clear to me that the modern age is about accessibility and education for all, and creativity and art, and being just as important as science or mathematics, and that just a look to the future, and the no one right way, but that we're really trying to see each individual as a possible agent of change, and we're open to because we need to be, to creativity and what is going to impact this world, and in a positive way. It will be interesting to see what the upcoming election brings, and what will happen to unite or divide the country, and impact sort of the education and curriculum development in the next few years. Tonight, as watching the Academy Awards, and the woman who won the Best Actress was commenting on the division in our society, and in essence saying that story and voice and heroes are something we can all agree to and unite about. And I think there's some beautiful things that will come out of the divide, and I'm hoping that we will find a common voice and a common ground, and some things that we can agree on in terms of what works for the education of all.